Sorry, I forgot to start the recording. The food and the fellowship for this group starts at 8 o'clock and the speaker comes on at 8:30. The business meeting for this group meets every Saturday at 7 o'clock till 7:30. So please feel free to come early. We have the coffee on. The purpose of this group is to provide a consistent message of hope and recovery through God reliance and service to others through the practice and teachings of the 12 steps. We record all speakers so that others can benefit from their message of recovery. If you wish not to be recorded, simply ask. This is an open meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. The group would like to welcome everyone, especially newcomers. Is there anybody that's new or visiting from out of town that would like to introduce themselves on a first name basis so we can welcome you? Yeah.
My name is Steve. I'm an alcoholic.
Steve.
Welcome. Road trip visiting from my last cancer.
Awesome. Glad to have you. Glad to have you. Anybody else? Yeah, in the back there. Mike. Welcome, welcome. We got everybody?
Right here.
Right. Yeah, oh, in front here, sorry.
Hi, Gail from the Town Square.
Gail, welcome. Okay, the Conscious Contact Speaker Group encourages sponsorship. Would anyone with a working knowledge of the 12 steps and who is willing to sponsor, please raise their hands. So there you go. If you are new, we got plenty of people willing to sponsor. There's always a meeting after the meeting, so hang out with us, grab one of those people. We'd love to give you some numbers, recommend some meetings, get you involved in the solution a little bit. Are there any announcements from the floor for the good of AA? Oh, Dave, this is an important one.
Dave, alcoholic.
Dave.
Two things. I'd like to wish every veteran a happy Veterans Day. And second, I will be the putting liaison. So anyone come to me, you can purchase our capabilities for anywhere from $20 to $500.
Thank you very much, Dave. Does anybody else have anything? Okay, a couple of quick announcements from this group. This group has a sister group, which is a big book study meeting. It meets every Thursday at 7:30 right up the road here. That's at Salem UCC Church. That's 186 East Court Street in Doylestown, PA. Again, the coffee for that meeting's on at 6:15, so feel free to show up early and join us. We have meeting lists and big books on easy terms. Please see me or any home group member after the meeting. If you cannot afford a big book, the Conscious Contact Speaker Group will give you one at no charge. Anyone willing to make donations for the purchase of big books and CDs to help those who cannot afford them can put their donations in the jar on that back table that's marked Big Book and CD Donations. All CDs are available free of charge. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, the Conscious Contact Speaker Group of Doylestown, PA. We post all the speakers from this group on there. We also post speakers from the meeting we have on Monday, which is at 6 p.m. That is a speaker step discussion group. That group is also followed at 7:30 by an Al-Anon ACOA meeting right in this room right here. There is also a meeting in this church right on the other side of this wall. It meets at 6 a.m. 6 days a week. So if you're interested in any of that, we can get you more information on that. See me after the meeting. This group also is going to be putting on a workshop, and that's going to be on December 9th, the December to Remember Spiritual Banquet and Conference. And we're going to have all kinds of speakers coming in. We'll be covering all 12 steps over the course of the day, headlined by Pete M. from Florida, who will be speaking at our regularly scheduled time at 8:30. If you want any more information on that, it's free, donation supported. You don't have to register or anything, free for all. So if you want more information on that, we got a flyer up here you can take a picture of. Again, you can see me or any home group member after the meeting if you want more information on that. And with that, Steve is going to come up here, and he is going to read our Just for Today prayer.
Good evening, Doylestown. I'm Steve, and I'm an alcoholic. This is the Just for Today prayer of recovery. Just for today, I will be agreeable. I will look as well as I can, dress becomingly, talk low, act courteously, criticize not one bit, not find fault with anything, or not try to improve or regulate anybody except myself. And next up, we have Donna that is going to read the AA preamble.
I'm Donna, I'm an alcoholic. The AA Preamble. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength, and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denominations, politics, organizations, or institution. Does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither nor endorses or opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. And with that, Brian's going to come up and read the 12 steps.
I am Baby Steps, the Jaywalking Alcoholic. 12 steps of recovery. Step 1, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. Step 2, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Step 3, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. Step 4, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. Step 5, admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. Step 6, we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. Step 7, humbly asked Him to remove our shortcomings. Step 8, made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. Step 9, made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. Step 10, continued to take personal inventory and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. Step 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. Step 12, having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs. And with that, I'll bring Brian back up here to introduce the speaker.
Okay, seventh tradition, every AA group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions. At this time, we'll make sure the basket makes its way around. Again, there's no dues or fees for any membership, but we do have expenses, and your contributions help us to cover the cost of food, rent, big books, CDs, workshops, the refreshments we put out, so we do appreciate that. There's absolutely no smoking on the church property. It's the church's policy, so if you could just be considerate of that as you're coming and going from the meeting, just wait until you leave the premise. Please take a moment to silence all cell phones and limit movement during the meeting to avoid distractions. And now to introduce our speaker for tonight, a good friend of the Conscious Contact Speaker Group on loan to us from the Bernardsville Daily Reprieve Group. Please help me welcome Eric from New Jersey.
Good evening, my name is Eric, I'm an alcoholic, and my apologies for no tie. I think when Ron called me, I had a 5- and 6-year-old hanging off me, and single dad of those little boys, and only by the grace of God I get to be that for those boys today. And always grateful to be in Alcoholics Anonymous meeting, always grateful to share my experience, strength, and hope. And I stand before you as a one-time former militant atheist who damned people in their Sunday best when step foot in a place like this, and yet I stand here by the grace and mercy of a loving God. And truth be told, the 12 Steps of Alcoholics Anonymous is a shift in my perception. I grew up in a single-parent home. My mother's a raging alcoholic. I got to bear witness what alcoholism and drug addiction could do to a family. My father disappeared when I was 5. He lost me at a fireman's fair on one of his visitations, and when my mom came to pick me up, they couldn't find me. And that was back in the 1980s. I remember getting into my mother's big blue boat of a car. It was a tank back then. You know, they had big cars back then, made differently. And I remember as a little tot getting in the backseat of that car and witnessing my mother just berating my father. And that's the last time I heard her seeing my father. And so I got a good education of what alcoholism and drug addiction can do to a family, and I swore to you I was never going to be like these people. And I stand here as a recovered member. I say recovered because the book tells me so, a recovered member of Alcoholics Anonymous because I've had a spiritual experience through these steps. And more importantly, I get to have a primary purpose, which is to pass this message along to other alcoholics. I have no idea how people make it through this life without God. I really don't. And growing up, what I realized is that alcoholism doesn't come in bottles and cans. Alcoholism comes in people. When you take the alcoholic, you're left with the ick. And I think for the first 18 years of my life, I was irritable, restless, and discontent. I had a malady of the spirit. And Bill talks about, and we agnostics, that deep down in every man, woman, and child is a fundamentality of God that's been obscured, meaning blocked. And Bill talks about three things that I have been blocked by. One is calamity. Freight train brain can't shut this thing off. And the reason why I have calamity today is upon inventory and further review of my life, I was very busy trying to play God. Right? So I'm trying to fix, manage, control. The outside circumstances is, to me, my internal comfort. And I saw all kinds of things. I can't claim to be an atheist because I had faith. I just had faith in all the wrong things. Right? The other thing that Bill talks about is pump, another word for ego, easing God out. And the last thing Bill talks about is worship of other things. Thou shalt not worship false gods. I made money a higher power. My mother was on welfare. I wasn't going to be like her. I made the relationship my higher power. She was my higher power in high school. I thought if I had the right relationship, that would fix me. I had this void in my soul, this God-shaped void in my soul, I've been trying to fill with everything but God. And I wonder why I'm irritable, restless, and discontent. The first 29 years of my life without God was very difficult. Although I would tell you that I was going to make it. I was going to be better than, I was going to be different. I was like Bill said, I had arrived, I was going to be the number one man, I was going to do all this stuff. I thought if I had enough of something, just something, I'd be okay. I had the if only syndrome growing up. If only I had that, if only they would do this, if only this would happen, then maybe I'd have some peace. And I tried not to drink for a long time. I didn't want to be like my mother. I didn't pick up my first drink until I was 18 years old because I was desperately afraid of becoming an alcoholic. Little I know, I had alcoholism well before I picked up the drink. And alcohol was my solution, not my problem, for a long time. And at age 18, when I found that drink, I took that drink, the shoulders dropped, the anxiety was gone, the fear went away. I just had a moment of serenity. And I thought, wow, now I know why my mom drinks, to change the way she feels. And I've been looking for this my whole life. It changes the way I feel. I drink for the effect produced by alcohol. Drinks I see others take with impunity, which means without consequence. I have a warped sense of perception. Alcoholism is a disease of perception. And in my mind, I'm thinking everybody else can get away with it. And if I could just find a way to get away with it, then I'd be okay. And it says in our literature, the great obsession, it's an obsession of every abnormal drinker is the one they control and enjoy his or her drinking. When I tried to control it, I couldn't enjoy it. When I enjoyed it, I couldn't control it. And I'm the kind of guy who, I'd go to the bar room and I'd play the game. I'd have 2 drinks, I'd walk away. See that? You're not an alcoholic. I would do anything to make myself the exception to the rule. I was in a meeting once in West Orange, and this old-timer put it really perfectly. He said, alcohol gave me wings, taught me how to fly, and took away the sky. It gave me delusion of power and control in the beginning, but at the end, it ripped everything away from me. And so what I do is I do anything to protect my right to drink. I do insane things. And when Bill talks about our second step, could be restored to sanity, could. There's some things I got to do to be restored to sanity. And I thank God for my brokenness. Because if it wasn't for my brokenness, I would have no need to change. And I believe God sends the broken to help the broken. That's why AA works so well. That's why Dr. Bob couldn't get it. He was a church member, he was a spiritual guy, but he just couldn't seem to stop drinking. And then Bill came along and was speaking his language. Because Bill had some experience about being an active drunk. And he had some information, armed with facts about himself. And what was supposed to be, what, a 15-minute meeting or something like that, turned out to be hours. And what a gift. When I look back at the history of AA, I see the hand of God throughout the whole history of Alcoholics Anonymous. How this started, 80 plus years later, through a pandemic. People got sober during a pandemic. AA didn't shut down. It was a powerful program. And I am truly a grateful member of Alcoholics Anonymous today. And that's why I do things like this. That's why I take men through the steps. That's why I go to meetings. You know, a lot of people say, you have 14 years, whatever, why are you still going to meetings? Well, I think to myself, more alcoholics die from lack of gratitude than they do of alcohol. Because I've seen guys get things back way too quickly. You know, they get a couple months goes by, they have the money in the pocket, the family comes back to them, they got everything going, and you know, I'll see some kind of disappear from Alcoholics Anonymous, right? And so if everybody took up their beds again and walked and had no need for Alcoholics Anonymous, in 2009, an hour at a rehab, when I needed the meeting the most, I might have crawled into an empty room if everybody just got so well they didn't need AA anymore. And I wouldn't be standing here today. So I don't go to meetings for myself anymore. I get a lot out of it. I go because I have a purpose. And a life without purpose is not a life worth living. And our preamble states that I have a primary purpose, to stay sober and help another alcoholic to achieve sobriety. Primary, not secondary. Not, yeah, I'll do my job and then I'll get to AA and help somebody. Not, I'll have the family and then I'll get to AA and do my priorities. But as a result of making God and AA my priority, I get to be all those other things. I get to be a good employee. I get to be a good partner. I get to be a good father. Because I keep God and AA first. And all the other stuff falls into place. I've been doing it 90 and 90 since October of 2009. I don't miss meetings, you know, and because I have a duty and obligation to give back what's so freely given to me, and I can't do it on my couch, but I can do it here. The meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous are the emergency room, and I come here to extend my hand to the next sick and suffering alcoholic the way it was done for me. And so I was broken, and I did a lot of things that I'm not proud of as an active alcoholic. I did a lot of things I didn't want to talk about as an active alcoholic. I put myself in positions that I probably shouldn't be alive as an active alcoholic. And I did anything to protect my right to drink. Anything. And so I'm 43. When I was 17, I looked like I was 9. I had a baby face. And, you know, I just got my car. I'm in high school. I haven't started drinking yet. And I went to go get this car serviced at a place in North Plainfield. And the service writer was looking for my parents. He's like around the corner. No, this is my car. I need service. And so that prompted a very odd relationship. And the guy invited me to work with him. I was working at ShopRite as a teenager, right? I was a workaholic in high school because I didn't want to be on welfare like my mother. Comparison is really part of my alcoholism too. I compare your outsides and my insides. And so I was a workaholic in high school. I had a job. Then I had 2 jobs. I was working both jobs. He invited me to work with him, and he was taking me to YMCA, and he was living in Chatham. He's like, why don't you come live here? And he was in his late 30s at the time. And little I realized there was a reason why this man was being so nice to me, but I didn't have a father growing up, so I thought I was a little naive. And you know, I started picking up the drink at age 18, and ended up buying a house with this guy at 20 years old and moving out on a resentment against my mother. I was going to be better then. And nobody escapes Mayville, New Jersey. Nobody. And I did, right? Look at me. I got out of Mayville, New Jersey. I'm back there today, by the way, so it's true. Nobody escapes Mayville, New Jersey. We had this beautiful townhouse. I remember sitting across from my grandmother at a kitchen table with this guy, and I'm a good salesman, he's a good salesman, and we sold this idea on buying and flipping real estate. We're going to become wealthy, right? The alkalogic. And so at 20 years old, I owned 1/3 of a townhouse, beautiful townhouse. You know, we had major parties. I had to show all my friends all the ego, like look at me, and because I was desperately seeking your approval. My whole life, I've been desperately seeking your approval because I had low self-esteem, and I made you my higher power. You see, I might have thought I'd been an atheist, but I had a lot of higher powers. They just weren't the right ones. And so here I am, we're partying, and it went from alcohol to other non-conference approved substances because alcohol just wasn't doing the trick. I had to be a chemist, and the parties got smaller and smaller and smaller. And in blackouts, I realized something. You know, first of all, when I met this guy, he offered me cash to take pictures because I had the body of a boy. And like, as long as the guy didn't touch me, I'm good. And so I got cash for these pictures, and then it turns out, you know, over the time of my active alcoholism and my addiction, I was a victim and a volunteer of sexual abuse at the hands of this man in my 20s. And I would say a volunteer because there were times I knew full well what was about to happen. But because the bottle was there and the other things were there, I allowed him to do things to me so I can get what I thought I needed to make me feel okay. Right? That's something I was going to take to my grave. I can stand in a room full of people and share that because I'm free. I'm not that person today. That's a gift. You know, and over a period of a decade, on and off, you know, I got a young lady pregnant who was married. I had 2 DUIs. You know, I got the first one. I said, no, that's never going to happen again. You know, 6 months later, I got the second one, and I was mandated to an 16-week program, IDRC program, which took me 8.5 years to finish. Right? I just didn't drive. You know, I was like, I'll walk to work. I'll take public transportation. I lived in Chatham, in an apartment with this guy in Chatham. Again, I kept going back. Every time I left, we had to sell the house because the house was going to be put up for sale by the bank. But we sold it before the bank took it and made money. And Grandma gave me $10,000 towards that house, and Grandma never got that money back, right? Because I knew what to do with that. I went from a $250,000 townhouse to a 4x6 room on Mechanic Street in Succotash, New Jersey, close to where I could walk to work. My roommate was actually a cocaine dealer, which was perfect. And it took me 4 months to go through that money. I had nothing left. And you know what I did? I went back to Chatham and subjected myself to that abuse all over again. I got a young lady pregnant, was married, who I work with. Out of that relationship today, I have a 19-year-old daughter from that relationship. I thought maybe if I lived with them, that would slow me down. You know, I spent a year living with them, and I was getting escorted home by the Roxbury police in blackouts. My 2-year-old daughter at the time would come out and see Daddy, and I did the only thing I knew to do was run. And in the back in Chatham, this guy always had an apartment in Chatham, New Jersey. I don't know what it was about Chatham, New Jersey, but I went back to Chatham, New Jersey for like a 3rd time. And needless to say, the 10 years of my active alcoholism was the darkest period of my life. But yet I needed every drink and every experience to get to where I'm at today. And on October 1st, 2009, I was stumbling, bumbling, hopeless, hope to die drunk. And on October 2nd, on my way to rehab, I lost the obsession to drink or do other things. And, you know, there's a debate made about the white light experience and the educational variety, right? We got the appendix in the back of the book. And I always thought I had the educational variety, but I think I might have had a bit of both, because the further I get away from that moment in time, the more I begin to realize that was a sudden, that was profound, and that was clearly something that could only happen by a power greater than myself. God interrupted my death without my permission. Because prior to that date, if I wasn't drinking or doing other things, I was obsessing over the next time I was going to get something in my body. So you see, I didn't have an alcohol problem, I had a sobriety problem. My problem was in between drinks. And that's why just not drinking and going to meetings for me, as a hopeless drunk, doesn't fit the bill. You know, and so I went to rehab in Endeavor House, Keyport, New Jersey, and I spent my nice 29-day stint in there, Ironically too, I've been to jail. I've been on all kinds of institutions and things of that nature, and I didn't need to be in prison to be in prison. I made a self-made prison out of bottles and powders and pills and pipes and everything you got. I was a slave to a substance. I did a third step every day in active alcoholism. I turned my will and my life over to the care of a bottle with no regards. Yet give me a solution where I can escape that. And as an alcoholic, I want to fight it. And so I went into rehab. I spent my 29th birthday in rehab. The Yankees won the World Series that year. That was wonderful. I remember I was still living in Chatham, New Jersey at the time with this guy in the apartment, and he came to pick me up from rehab. And nothing in God's economy is wasted. Absolutely nothing. Because of the history of that relationship, it made me really uncomfortable to stay there sober. So it drove me to a lot of AA meetings in early recovery. I mean, a lot. They say 90 and 90, I don't know. I think I made in one day, I was working in Manhattan at the time, before I lost my job in recovery, which I tried every which way in active alcoholism to lose that job, and they wouldn't fire me. It turns about 10 months into recovery, they found the reason. But I remember in one day, I would go, there was a clubhouse, Perry Street Clubhouse. I think I made 7 meetings in one day. Now I wasn't bar hopping anymore, but I still wasn't attending my sales responsibilities as an employee. And 10 months in, they told me I had to resign. And prior to that 10 months when I was living in Chatham, I went to a lot of meetings. I was heavily involved in the Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous. I had 10 coffee commitments. I was on a speaking circuit. I was I was Mr. AA. And I remember my sponsor hit me with the ultimatum. And another thing that was God's grace is an hour out of rehab, I stumbled into a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous called Start the Night Right Group in Summit, New Jersey at 5:30, and really an hour out of rehab. I just told the guy to just drop me off at a meeting. And I stumbled into that meeting, and I sat in the way back, and I didn't want to be noticed or recognized. And one of the suggestions in rehab was to raise my hand, say my name is Eric, I'm an alcoholic, I just got out of rehab and I need help. I had no intention of doing that, but my hand went up, and I said, my name is Eric, I'm an alcoholic, I just got out of rehab and I need help. And a man approached me after that meeting, shook my hand, gave me his blue book. When I was in his pickup truck with his sponsee, they were reading the doctor's opinion. It was like Chinese to me. I was like, what was going on here? And that man became my sponsor, and still my sponsor today, 14 years later. I didn't have to pick my sponsor, it was preordained. Because, in my material mind, I could go for the sponsor who had the trophy girlfriend and the Ferrari and the big house, right? Because I'm a materialistic guy, and I like nice things, and things were my higher power too. If I just had enough of something, I'd be okay. And truth is, I achieved a lot of things even in the midst of my active alcoholism, but it never filled me up. Always left me empty, searching for something else. Never satisfied. And so I remember him giving me this ultimatum. I was like, man, I'm Mr. AA here. Like, I go to like 14 meetings a week. I got 4 home groups. What the hell's going on? He said, why am I irritable, restless, and discontent? He said, look, pick up another coffee commitment and break your record for meetings in a day, make 8, see if that helps you. He said, but I guarantee you something. If you keep coming to meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous feeling the way you're feeling, he said, you're going to get drunk. He said, unless you want to meet me at my kitchen table once a week, and we'll go through this book so you can have an experience. And he left me with that ultimatum. Either you get drunk or you're going to go through the process. And I ended up going through the process. And I had a profound, deep, and effective spiritual awakening, which now I can pass on to other members of Alcoholics Anonymous who are sick and suffering. And it's been quite a wild ride over the past 14 years. My first conception of a higher power came in rehab, and this guy was a temporary sponsor at the time before I got my current sponsor, because we had to level up, right? In rehab, you have to be a good a good egg, and you got to do certain things, and you get phone privileges, and then you get to go out with a guy who drives you to meetings, so you have to go with the white van, the druggy buggy, I call it, all the other inmates. And I got this guy taking me to the loft down in I think in Red Bank there, and we had this discussion about my disbelief in God. In fact, we'd sit in the kumbaya circles and share about our feelings. And I'd get up and we say the serenity prayer. I would leave out the word God in front of the serenity prayer. I wouldn't even say the word God. I need some tangible evidence that it's God business. It was there all along. I was just blind. I was spiritually asleep for 29 years of my life, didn't realize it. And he said, look, I don't care what you want to believe in. I strongly suggest you pick something. He said, don't you think alcohol and drugs are part of yourself? You're in the institution. Normal people don't end up in institutions. And by the way, what's your record prior to this institution? I said, okay, you got a good point. All right. He said, I don't care what you want to believe in. Pick something. I said, I believe in karma. You reap what you sow, what goes around comes around. He said, that's wonderful. I want you to do me a favor, just a suggestion. I want you to drop your knees in the morning, ask your karma to redirect your thinking, and I'll guide you through a 24-hour period of sobriety. And because all my scorecards were at 0, and I had the gift of desperation, I had nothing left. I was broken beyond broken. I agreed to take that suggestion. He said, when you make it through a day without picking up a drink or a drug, I want you to drop your knees again and thank your karma for another day of sobriety. And that was mid-October of 2009. I haven't missed a day since. And you know what happens for me is this is a program of action. I can't think my way into right action, but I can act my way into right thinking. And it began a pattern of changing the way I do things. You know, and that's how I know that I was broken enough and willing, because I was doing things in the beginning of my recovery I did not believe in, but I did them anyway. And that was the gift. There was no resistance. You know, the only thing I had to change is everything. And if you don't change, your sobriety date will, right? Kind of thing like that. My sponsor would tell me in early recovery, you're thick-headed and thin-skinned. He'd say all kinds of crazy things to me. And so here I am, 10 months into my recovery, and I got canned from this job, and I'm sitting in Midtown Manhattan with my cubicle packed in a bag at 9 o'clock in the morning. Called my sponsor. I went to this meeting I go to every afternoon called New But West on West 46th Street. It became a home group in early recovery. And I sat in this huge, big cathedral of a church on West 46th Street for a couple hours before the meeting started. And they had 3 meetings that went on at one time, 3 different levels. And I sat there and I just prayed. I meditated for a couple hours. I went up, I got the keys, I unlocked all the doors. I set up the chairs for every meeting. And I went back on a train after that meeting, went back to Jersey, went to another meeting. Didn't pick up a drink. You know, and that was God's grace. And I had to make some living change decisions, right? I didn't have a job. And in my infinite wisdom, because I need a sponsor, I can't do this without a sponsor. I just can't. Am I sponsor myself? I have an idiot for a sponsor if I'm sponsoring myself. And so he said he likes lists. This guy loves me writing things down. I'm like, why do you want to write this down? He's like, I want you to write a list, pros and cons of 3 living situations, and give it back to me. I said, okay. So I came up with living by myself, staying where I was at and getting another job in Manhattan, or moving back with my ex and my daughter. Those are my 3 options. My sponsor knew my story at this point, and he came from an entirely different angle. And he said, here's what I want you to do. He said, that's nice. He said, but I want you to go to your grandmother and ask her for help. I said, what are you, nuts? I said, I owe her 10 grand. I don't have the 10 grand. I can't make that financial amends yet. And my grandmother has helped me my whole entire life. How can I possibly ask this lady for more help? And I took his suggestion. I sat across from her kitchen table again. I made an amends in a general way. I told her about the $10,000. It was gone. I don't have anything to show for that. And she said, no, that was a gift. You don't need to give it back to me. And she invited me to move in with her. And she showed me unconditional love. And I thought I got off the hook with that 10 grand. And my sponsor said, no. He said, you pick a charity and you donate to that charity until your debt is paid. And I've been donating to that charity for I don't know how long now. My debt could be paid at this point, but it doesn't matter. My whole life I've been a taker. My whole life I've been coveting things. My whole life I've been seeking to get rather than to give because I had no relationship with God. I wasn't filled up. And today I can give. And it doesn't even come from me. My power, my strength, and my success is not mine. It all belongs to God. And it's a shift in perception. You see, the good men and women with organized religion were not the problem. It was my perception of them that was the problem. It's all up here. As Chuck C. would say, maybe heaven is simply just a new pair of glasses. As I uncovered, discovered, and discarded the flaws in my makeup that blocked me from that crucial relationship with the one who made me. You see, I worshipped creation. I placed creation above creator my whole life. I wasn't grateful for anything. So it withered away. I lost it. Thank God. Thank God I don't have the old life back. And so what that set me up for is to live with Grandma and to help her out and to be of service. And Grandma was older, COPD, emphysema, a lot of health problems, couldn't get up and down the stairs to do laundry. I could do that. Couldn't go grocery shopping with the heat and the humidity. She couldn't even get out the door sometimes. I watched my grandmother basically suffocate to death because of COPD and emphysema. Smoking was her crutch. She never drank. Her brother died of cirrhosis of the liver. There was alcoholism plagued in my family. She would not pick up a drink. But she smoked. A lot. And it killed her. You know? And I watched her the last 5 years of her life. I cut the grass. I did everything Grandma couldn't do. And my sponsor set me up to be of service to my grandmother. And what a gift. This process is powerful. You know, I harbor no resentment against that man who did the things to me that he did to me. None. He's a child of God. He's a sick man. I pray for him and I let it go. The only mistake I ever made in that resentment was to hold on to that resentment because it was killing me. It wasn't killing him. It was killing me. The most powerful part of a resentment inventory is the fourth column. I'm building my case in the first three columns, right? That's the person or institution, what they did to me and how it affected me. Poor me. Poor me. Come on, I'm the victim. But then when I had to look at my mistakes, not my part, it says my mistakes in those relationships, I had to ask myself those questions. Selfish, self-seeking, frightened, dishonest. I began to realize that the reason why I was in collision with something or somebody else my whole life is because of my insecurities and my character defects and my fears that I was driven by when I interact with the fears of others. And I can never have peace, and I can never have serenity, and I can never have a proper relationship. In fact, I lived the 11th step prayer in reverse, the St. Francis prayer. I needed to be loved. I needed to be understood. I needed to be comforted, and I needed to be forgiven. It was all about me. What I didn't realize is when I give these things, they naturally come back to me. I need to understand rather than be understood. I need to love to be loved. I need to forgive to be forgiven. Powerful program. That man saw something in me in AA, and then before I ended up leaving and moving in with my grandmother, he joined Alcoholics Anonymous. And I watched him pick off the young guys in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I so wanted to say something. But I didn't. Because how do I know? Maybe he can recover. I have no idea. And I watched him celebrate 3 years of recovery. And then he disappeared. I don't know where he went. But I harbor no resentment. And I went through a phase in AA where, nobody was doing it right. You have that spiritual awakening and the big book becomes a weapon. Ever go through that? Right? I was like year 2 to 10. I was one of those guys when you walked into a room of a regular meeting, people looked at me and like, oh, here comes the big book guy again. Oh boy. And yeah, I was one of those thumpers. Spiritual pride is another form of ego. And my ego loves to rebuild itself. It will take everything I think I know about that big book and turn it against me. It will separate me from the fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous. I need all three sides of the triangle. All three. Unity, recovery, and service. I can't put all my eggs in the one basket. And so I've had some wild experiences in the past 14 years. And I was with Grandma. And I don't know, in northern New Jersey, they have this commitment called Night Watch in Intergroup. The Intergroup office in northern Jersey opens from, I think they're open from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. And then they'll have an answering service if you call after 6 p.m. to kind of pick up the phones. But what happens is they have a liaison that tries to get groups to take this commitment on for the week. And you get a 12-step binder in all the counties in New Jersey and northern New Jersey. And there's lists of 12-step contacts of people who are willing to take calls from other alcoholics. And so what happens is they pass the 800 number to your cell phone, and you're on call all night. And it was my first Night Watch commitment for Intergroup. It was a Tuesday night. I had the computer set up for when they call and when they ask for meetings. And then after the meetings are closed, you get the wet ones that call, and I call the wet ones, right? And it was late, and I made sure I had the phone up really, really loud in case I put by my ear in case I fall asleep. And my phone rings, and I pick it up, and it's my mother calling the Intergroup office asking for help on my first Night Watch commitment. And I said, she quickly realized who she was talking to. Mom, it was not a secret. Mom knows I'm in AA. And she started to cry and break down, tell me how proud she was of me. I had maybe a couple of years at this point of recovery. And I said, Mom, I'm going to have somebody from Somerset County. This lady's going to call you. Just be by your phone. And I had this lady I knew in Somerset County, like 1 o'clock in the morning, answered the phone, picked up, called Mom. Mom called me back 10 minutes later, drunk and belligerent, didn't like that lady. It's like, okay, Mom, all right. I said, look, there's a meeting like later on tonight, because at that point it was Wednesday morning. It was like 2 o'clock in the morning. I said, there's a meeting 7:30. I said, if you want to go, I'll take you to the meeting. I'll turn you over to the ladies, and that'll be that. And she said, yeah, please take me to the meeting. I want to go to the meeting. I said, okay. So I went to go pick Mom up, and now they live on North 6th Avenue, my childhood home, a home that my grandparents bought for me, and my mother and my aunt, my cousins. That's another thing. My childhood wasn't so bad now that I look at it in a clearer perspective than when I looked at it as the victim and the active alcoholic, right? Woe is me, no father, blah, 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 right? Poor me. I didn't have it so bad. My grandparents owned an elevator company in Manhattan. They were financially set. The house that my mother still lives in to this day, that I grew up in, is paid for, no mortgage. My grandparents took care of that for us. And I was first born in the family, and Christmas time would come, and Grandpa would come over he's like Santa Claus with garbage bags of toys, and here I am, poor me, right? I'm thinking to myself, so my mother's an alcoholic, I had no father, blah, 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 right? I had a floppy disk computer when I was there. I had the first dial-up internet, right? I was one of the first ones to have a computer back then. My mother wouldn't let me get on a plane to go to Disney World. My grandfather bought a conversion van and drove us down to Disney World. I conveniently forget about these things in my childhood because it would kill my resentment against my childhood, right? I am what I pay attention to. And so I went to go pick her up. And my mother has a twin sister, my aunt. My aunt lived downstairs, my mother lived upstairs. They were both home. The doors were locked, the shades were drawn, and nobody was picking up the phone or answering the door. And I went to the meeting without her. And it's been that way ever since. And I can't get Mom sober. I can be an example if Mom wants it. August of 2015, my grandmother fell very ill, She went to go get her lungs cleared out. She went to a rehab. Then she got double pneumonia, had to go back to the hospital. Finally, they just said, look, there's nothing we could do for her. And she decided to come home on hospice and die. And I remember going to a meeting. It was a Wednesday. It was October 15th. And I'm really bad with dates, but I remember this date. And nothing in God's economy is wasted. When I look back how everything just kind of fell, like I got a job. When I moved in with Grandma in 2010, the field I was in Manhattan, I just magically got a job in New Jersey, just fell into my lap. And got to work and live with Grandma, right? It just kind of fell into place. And it was a circus when Grandma was dying, unfortunately. You know, I call them the Three Stooges, my uncle and my aunt and my mother. And they were going through Grandma's stuff while Grandma's in bed, you know, the alcoholics. And there was all kinds of morphine family coming in. It was chaos. And I had no part of any of that. I was able to step back and just be of service to Grandma. And it was the 15th, and it was a Wednesday, and I went to this meeting in Bridgewater that I go to. It's 12:15 sometimes. And I walked in with 5 minutes to go to the meeting. Like, hey, you're here. I'm like, what do you mean? Yeah, I'm here. They're like, you're speaking today. You spoke. We asked you to speak. You remember? I'm like, oh no, I didn't remember that. So I spoke in a general way, and I went back, and we all watched Grandma take her last breath after that meeting. And I got a text message from a guy in West Orange reminding me of a speaking commitment at 8 o'clock that evening. I was like, oh man. And so as they were wheeling my grandmother's body out of the house, the corner, I was in my car ready to drive 50 minutes to West Orange on another speaking commitment the day of my grandmother's death. I had a double speaking commitment. Didn't plan that, but that's kind of how it worked out. And then in my spiritual pride phase, right, the big book clubbing phase, I was at a meeting on a Friday night, which I probably still don't owe an amends to. And, tradition 4 says every group has a right to be wrong, right, as long as it doesn't affect AA as a whole. And this group had a reputation for crosstalk. Well, it doesn't say anything about crosstalk in the big book, by the way, but we don't like crosstalk. And this meeting liked crosstalk, and I didn't realize that. And it was at the beginning of this meeting, I sat in there, and I was, I had my suit and tie at that time. I was working in the city. I had the suit and tie on. And I sat down, and the beginner was going on for what I thought was way too long. I'm like, this guy needs to shut up. What's going on? He's talking about nonsense, blah 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 blah. But I'm spiritually fit, right? And the leader would interrupt him and give him direct advice in the middle of the meeting. They were having a conversation. I'm like, what the hell is going on here? This is not a regular AA meeting. I'm like, what, is Dr. Phil going to come out next? I'm like, what? I was the last one to share. And I said, my name's Eric Vaughn. I'm a recovered alcoholic. And oh, by the way, if anybody wants to get well, come see me after the meeting. Yeah. Somebody came to see me after the meeting. And this guy was like, I've been in for 4 years. I keep relapsing. I never did the steps. You talked about steps. Somewhere in that prompt share, I talked about steps, right? I started to sponsor. I've been sponsoring this guy ever since. It's been over a decade at this point. And I remember we used to meet at Cook College in New Brunswick and do step work every Saturday morning before the meeting. And one random Wednesday night, we're at a meeting in Middletown, New Jersey. We drove up to a diner. And I always made him carry on his notebook because I said, you never know I'm going to ask you to do this inventory, so just be ready. And so we sat down at the diner, and I said, all right, let's write down your resentments right now. He's like, right now? I'm like, yeah, right now. And so he starts going through his resentment inventory, and he says, Lenny Vaughn. I was like, whoa, Lenny Vaughn. Why are you mad at Lenny Vaughn? He's like, he's a drunk, he's a bum, stays on my couch sometimes, borrows money from me, never pays me back. I was like, I'm interested about Lenny Vaughn. Tell me more about this guy. Was he in Millstone? Yeah. Adopted? Yeah. I said, I think you have resentment against my father. I haven't seen her from 29 years. My mother didn't know where he was. Turns out he lives in New Brunswick, 20 minutes away from me. Nobody knew that, and he had a resentment against my father. So even my spiritual pride didn't go to waste, right? God meets me where I'm at. Thank God for God. And so I remember we would go to that meeting every Saturday morning, and one Saturday morning he said, why don't you follow me? I'll show you where he lives. I'm like, okay. So he's off the radar. He works for cash. He lives with the elderly lady at the time. And I remember walking up to this house, and this little old lady was just standing at the door. It was almost like she knew I was coming. Maybe she did. I don't know. But before I had a chance to say anything, the hairs on the back of my neck stood up. And she opened the door and she took one look at me. She said, "Eric," she said, "your father's been talking an awful lot about you lately. Why don't you come in?" I said, "Oh, all right." And I came in. My father wasn't there. I had a conversation with her. I left my number. And that same day I got a call from my father, my missing father. And we never rekindled a relationship. He's been sick and suffering. He's been in and out of my life for forever. And on September 7th, I got a call from New Brunswick Police Department of this year. And they said they had some information for me they couldn't share with me over the phone. I'm like, I haven't done anything illegal, so I'm good. They said, go to the Mayville Police Department. There's a detective there. He wants to talk to you. So I went to the Mayville Police Department on Friday, September 7th. And he sat me down. He said, "Eric, we have some really bad news for you." He said, "We don't ever like to share this over the phone. That's why we're bringing you in." He said, "But we found your father dead in his apartment this morning." And I don't know how to take that, right? I was like, I don't really know the guy, but I feel sad because he is my father. And I went to his apartment that same day. And what I walked into was a snapshot of what my future would have been if I kept drinking. Nothing in God's economy is wasted. Absolutely nothing. Empty beer bottles, other paraphernalia. He lived alone. He died without knowing his grandchildren. He died without having a relationship with really anybody. I found that I have 6 aunts and uncles. And I found a little more history about my father and what happened to him. He was adopted. His father, at age 42, died in a house fire in Manville. Their mother went insane, had a mental breakdown, couldn't take care of the 6 kids. There were 6 of them. 3 went with one foster home, and 3 went with another foster home. And that's how my father grew up. And so I found my missing aunts and uncles. One lives in Colorado, one lives in Montana, one lives in Doylestown, New Jersey, his youngest brother. I had another aunt who lives in Pennsylvania. And so I ended up talking to his caseworker, finding stuff out, and I made the phone call to his family to let them know the news. And just a couple weeks ago, the end of October, on a Saturday, we had a memorial for him in Doylestown at his brother's house. And I got to meet my cousins and aunts and uncles that knew me when I was young, but I don't remember them. And I just got a text message from my uncle, his brother, inviting me over for Thanksgiving with the boys. And God is good. All the time. What a gift. And what I've learned in recovery is that I don't tie circumstances to my recovery. So Grandma died, and she always took care of me. She left me money. Guess where I bought a house? Manville, New Jersey. On North 3rd Ave, 3 blocks away from my mother, who still lives on North 6th Ave. Got engaged, moved a family in, moved my now ex-fiance in, and her daughter. Started a family, had the boys. 2021 of September, we had Hurricane Ida. I live in a flood zone. I had to evacuate all the boys. I had my stepdaughter at the time, my 2 boys, 2 dogs. The ex-fiance was at work at Wawa. She got stuck. And I had to pack up a minivan of whatever we could and drove to my now ex-father-in-law's house up in Basking Ridge. And a couple days later, when the water receded, I went back and we lost everything. In the hotel for 2 months, my ex-fiancée just had a mental breakdown. She couldn't deal with it. Ended up having an affair. Had to kick her out. And her daughter. Moved me and the boys into an RV that was delivered to my driveway on November of 2021. Last weekend, we just got back into the house. We were in that RV for 2 years. I became a single dad of those boys. Not once did I think about picking up a drink. Hadn't even crossed my mind. I also haven't missed a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. I also answer my phone when sponsees call. I work with men. I take them through the book. I have commitments. I have a home group. All three sides of the triangle. You know, life is difficult. Life ain't easy. But it'd be a lot worse if I were to pick up a drink. I wouldn't be a father to those boys. And what I saw on September 7th, when I went into my father's apartment with 14 years sober, I broke that chain. All my children know who I am. I'm an active part of all their lives, except for my 19-year-old daughter, who's in her no daddy phase for the past couple of years. But I do my part. I text her every twice or 3 times a month. Love you, miss you. I don't get a response. That's okay. I give it to God. I don't take it personally. And I have a peace that passes all understanding. I'm the guy now who goes, tomorrow we're going to go to church, this militant atheist. I'm going to wear my little name badge. I'm going to greet all the good men and women of religion who I had a resentment against. And I have a personal relationship with a God of whom I would debate the existence of before calling these rooms a broken mess. God rejects and opposes the proud, but gives grace and mercy to the humble. And alcoholism has a way of humbling people. Life has a way of humbling people. I've watched people in AA go through extraordinary circumstances of life, cancer, bearing children, all sorts of things in AA. But we get through it. And that's where the fellowship comes in for me. I have a really great network of people in AA, men and women, who have been with me over the past 2 years, who have lifted me up when I needed it, who have given me guidance and direction, who have, like, there's lawyers in these rooms. I had a lawyer help me with moderation of the ex and all that stuff. I have a contractor who's in AA who did my house for way less than the insurance. But I am a very blessed man because of God and Alcoholics Anonymous and because of that relationship. I think for me that's the most important relationship I'll ever have in my life, is my relationship with God. I don't know how people go through life today without God. And I have 29 years of experience without God, and I have 14 years of experience with God. I gotta tell you, I choose the 14 experience with God than I do the last 29 without. So if you're an atheist, agnostic, as Dr. Bob would say, and have any other form of intellectual pride which keeps you from accepting what we have to offer, right? Intellectual pride, contempt prior to investigation. Boy, I investigated that next drink to the gates of death, right, near death, hell, and insanity, right? That's the insane part about alcoholism, is that I know full well when I pick up the drink that it's not going to be a good outcome, but I do it anyway. And by the way, insanity doesn't get restored until step 10, right? Could. By turning my will and my life for the process of recovery, as I get off my knees from the 3rd step prayer, my sponsor sat me down at his kitchen table. He said, now you're writing your inventory. He didn't say take it home for homework. He said, you're writing your inventory. I'm like, when? Now, next launch. It doesn't say sit on it. It doesn't say do the 1, 2, 3 waltz. It doesn't say hang out in step 1, 2, and 3. It says next, now, launch, do it. So I did it. And then that process, or you could take a resentment, and at the end of that resentment, after doing the turnarounds, realize that, wow, I actually owe an amends to the person I really hated because of the things I did to them. My sponsor would say there's always 3 sides to a story. There's your version, their version, and the truth resides somewhere in the middle. Today, God is good. And while I might not have had an earthly father growing up, I always had a heavenly father. And I'll leave you with this. I remember holding my little guy, 4 months old, and I had this epiphany. And he's looking up at me with the big eyes, right? The babies have big eyes and the gummy smile. He sees his experience in life, and he knows with out a doubt in his little mind, I'm his father, he's safe and protected, he's in the care of, and I will do anything to protect him. I love him so much. I looked up in that moment and I realized something. I've always had a Heavenly Father. I've always been in the care of, safe and protected. And He loves me way more than I can ever imagine my love for my own children. Because I'm here. Because I was willing to accept the gift. Not everybody wants to accept the gift. In order to have a gift, I have to accept it. Bill says he believes God comes to those when we want Him enough. How badly do you want God? Because He wants you. The prodigal sons and daughters. And so I keep coming. I remain teachable. I'm only here by God's grace and mercy in spite of myself. And thanks for letting me share.
Again, I'm Brian. I'm an alcoholic. I want to thank Eric for coming out here tonight and delivering an incredible message of hope and recovery. A couple quick announcements and we'll wrap up the meeting here. Again, the food and the fellowship for this group starts at 8 o'clock every week. You can feel free to show up early, join us, enjoy the refreshments we put out, hang out, socialize. If you do want to get involved with service, we have service positions available for this group. This group also has commitments at hospitals and institutions in the area, so if you would be interested in carrying a message to the front lines, to the sick and suffering, you can see me, see any group member after the meeting. We have a commitment tomorrow night in Quakertown every week. We're running commitment, so if you're interested in that, just see someone after the meeting. It's always the meeting after the meeting, so I say again, if you're out there, grab somebody, grab some numbers. If you want to help us out with some service work, just putting away the chairs, we could always use some help. We put away these chairs in the front, the ones on the tables back there will stay exactly where they are. It's customary for us to thank our speakers as they come here on their own time and expense to share a message of hope and recovery with us. So we usually form a line in the front and we thank our speakers personally. Thanks everyone for helping out with the meeting tonight. Thanks to everybody who helped set up. Thanks to our greeters, our readers. Thanks to our new hoodie liaison, Dave, over there. Thanks to Annette in the kitchen. But most importantly, let's give our speaker, Eric, one more round of applause. And if you do care to join us, we have a nice way of closing. What? Yeah, I guess we're going to circle up. I guess we're circling up again now, so everybody wants to form a circle. Okay. And if you do care to join us, we'll close the meeting down with a brief moment of silence for the still sick and suffering alcoholic inside and outside of these rooms, followed by our Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
The flyer for the December 9th conference is taped to the wall there. You can take a picture of it if you like. If you can't find it, just take at the exits.